Welcome to Exhausted Sparrows Unite. I am Krista Jones with my beautiful co-host, Chantel Schaefer. And today we are talking about delegation. Because here's the truth. Finally, you've delegated something. Yay, you! Only to find out that you're hovering like a low-key helicopter pilot. You're rewriting the email. You're reloading the dishwasher. You're redoing the birthday goodie bags, all because the tissue paper just wasn't folded right. Sound familiar? Well, welcome to my hell. We are going to get into that today because, man, this is a problem for me. And here's the thing. What happens, this is what I really want to talk about, when you do hand it off and it comes back half done or wrong or not done at all. We're going to go deep into delegation, why it's hard, what to do when it flops, how to reframe when it's good enough. This is an episode about learning to rest without resentment. Oh boy.
Bum, bum, bum.
I feel like every other episode, I'm like, this is my episode. And I think that's because I do all of these, and then we give you guys all this great advice that we research and we hear about, and it sounds amazing. And a lot of these episodes, I'm talking about, don't do the low-hanging fruit. Get rid of that. You don't have to do that. And then I'm like, no, that's not exactly true. Because sometimes you really do delegate it, and it's just not even done right. So I kind of feel like, we're going to talk about delegating today, and of course why it's so important. In every episode, we're talking about getting your peace, living authentically, giving yourself grace, but we're also going to talk about it's not okay if you're delegating and it's not done right either. And how do you find this comfortability and how do you find this trust, which is a big deal for me. Big deal for me, especially when I hire employees. I find very few that I just can leave alone. And that means I trust you. But I kind of feel sometimes like delegation, you have to really earn trust before you can delegate. And so we're just getting into all of it like I just did in the last 37 minutes. And now we're done. No, we're scratching the surface. Delegation. Do you do it well, Chantel?
I usually do it well, and I try to not be disappointed in the outcome because I have standards, and not everybody shares my standards.
So sometimes it feels hard to delegate because we have a certain way we do it, a certain standard, like a certain feel, and we know how it should be done. Makes sense. So it's hard because sometimes you feel if I don't do it and I let somebody else do it, I'm being judged because I didn't do it, right? People are expecting you to do certain things, but yet you're handing some things off. So I think sometimes there's this fear of judgment. And then sometimes there's this identity, I am the executive director. No, I really am. I really am. We have Sparrow's Nest, which is a charity here in the Hudson Valley in New York. And I am the executive director and the founder of this beautiful charity that has grown because the community is awesome. And we feed people that have a cancer diagnosis, and we're feeding 450 people well every single week. We're holding it together with some organized chaos. But for me especially too, I am the executive director. So that's hard for me. I don't ever want to give you something to do that I wouldn't do myself. I will water the plants, which, oh my gosh, man, if I've been watering those plants, it's 95 degrees. And I'm you have to water them every 2 hours. I will take out the trash. I will do all this stuff. But there's always this identity crisis I'm having. If I don't do it, what will you think about me? I should be doing it. I'm the executive director. That should be my role. And trying to figure out what is my role and what's not my role. And, if I give it away, then does that mean I'm not competent?
I think in that situation, it's got to be hard because it started as your role. You start every role was your role in the beginning.
Right. Because absolutely at the beginning, I had to do it all. And so then you got to let that go. And then it's hard when, you feel you have a lot of knowledge in something and you know what's going to work and not work. And we'll get into all that. And then, you're afraid to let it go and have that messed up. Man, I feel like, can I lay on the couch and you just do the therapy? You just take over and just talk to me about all this. There's a lot going on there.
It's a lot to unpack.
Because when we talk about almost every episode, in order for us to give you guys some peace, we're always saying you have to release some of it. And, I've been listening to our podcast and some of it I'm like, yeah, but sometimes you release it and it's not done right. And so then I started doing a bunch of research on communicating, and I want to get into all of that. But, delegation a lot of times is this sense of perfectionism. Perfectionism to you, it doesn't mean that I would consider perfect the way you do, but it's the way that you feel is the absolute best. And so letting that go when you're a control freak, first of all, is awful.
Well, it's scary.
It's very hard to do.
Yeah.
Because you got to let it go to people you trust, right? And there's just this belief that, I don't know, right? If we do it all, sometimes you're like, wow, people are saying, look at all they do and all they do so well. And we've already gone over that you can't do it well anyways.
Nope.
So you should delegate. But there's this whole inner struggle, I think, that takes place with delegation for some people like myself. And I don't know. I don't consider myself a control freak. I consider myself untrusting. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, when it comes to the charity and our work, it's your baby. You created this and you want it to go right and you want it to go well. And passing off those big things is tough because you've always done it.
Right.
And, if a ball drops, then things could go south.
It comes back to Krista Jones.
It sure does. And you don't want to be putting out any more fires than absolutely necessary.
We do put out a lot of fires. So delegating, it feels hard because it is hard. It's part of your identity. It's part of where you get your self-worth. It's all of these things. But I think here's the thing for me that my version of right doesn't mean it's the only version of right. My version of good enough doesn't mean that your version of good enough can't pass.
Right.
Does that make sense? And I think too, that's something that is hard to grasp, especially for me, because, I'm not used to any other way and I'm stubborn more than I am a perfectionist. I just think I'm stubborn because, this has always worked and it's always worked this way. And so sometimes it's hard to step back and say, but it could work 7 other ways.
Well, it's that old adage, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right. Or that old adage, there's more than one way to load a dishwasher. Don't even get me started on the dishwasher. All right, let's get started quickly.
I try to shove as much stuff in that dishwasher as humanly possible.
And do you have cups have to go up top?
Oh,
Do you have a whole thing?
Oh, yeah.
All
Little
right.
plates have to go in the middle, big plates towards the side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What goes up top?
Bowls,
Okay.
cups,
Me too.
long utensils.
Long utensils, how do they go up?
I lay them down.
Yeah. You lay them down. They don't
on
stick
the top
up
rack.
because I say to my family every day, this is going to chop off the little
Yes.
helicopter thing.
Yep.
Nobody listens and it doesn't chop it off, which is why they continue doing that.
Oh, but does it make a loud noise? Does it make a noise?
Yeah.
See, that would drive me nuts.
That's what I'm saying. And
That's
then we
why
have
I
to
go in and I fix it.
So if you delegate to your children to do the dishwasher, we're going to learn how you should let that whole thing roll out and use it as a learning experience and not stop it in the middle like Krista Jones, mess up the entire cycle and have to redo the whole thing.
Yep.
So there is more than one way to load a dishwasher.
Yeah.
There are some people that are like, what are you talking about? There's no rhyme or reason. And I'm like, what? And the dishes still come out clean.
Savages.
I don't know that for sure if they come out clean. I'm assuming if you don't have a system, your dishes, could you please write us and let us know, Kay Jones at sparrowsnestcharity.org. Does your system work? If you don't even have a system, are they still clean?
I want diagrams. How do you load your dishwasher?
Yeah.
Send
But that's
them
what
to
I'm
us.
saying. There's a million ways and still all of our dishes come out clean. So that's what I'm going with today. So studies are showing, right, that when you collaborate and you share responsibilities, there is a ton of room for variation, But you have to know that going in. And that is where a lot of people get stuck, is that they will delegate it, but they won't let there be variety, which is Krista Jones. Because I know the way that it works, and I don't trust you enough to see that your way could work just as good or better.
Yeah. This was a fight between Jeremiah and I. I don't want to say a fight, but we used to get into some arguments. We didn't like building things together because I grew up with my dad who built things. He grew up with his dad who built things, but they did it differently. And when we would be doing things, I would offer suggestions and he wouldn't take them. And then I'd get frustrated because then he'd be frustrated. And then one day he took my advice and he went, "Oh." And I went, "I know what I'm talking about. I've done this before."
He had to trust you.
He did. And it took a while.
Right.
But now he does. And if I make a suggestion, he will at least consider it.
Yeah.
So we've learned to give that to each other, that we will consider the other one's viewpoint or idea.
I mean, I consider, that's okay. I consider your ideas a lot because I mean, they almost always work. I was like, oh, that's easier. Why haven't we done that? But it really is a trust thing with me. It definitely is a trust thing because I think sometimes you get burned, whether it's at home with the family, your husband, your spouse, your children, tell them to do things. And then, I mean, it just happened to me this week. The only things I left for Christian to do after I went nuts getting him dinner, I try to make a homemade dinner every single night. So I went nuts, made sure he had a nice dinner because he's, eating clean. And I did everything but those 2-3 dishes. And I'm like, do those dishes for me because we have somebody every 2 weeks that comes and cleans the house. And so, I don't want dirty dishes in my sink for them. I mean, that's the least I can do. They're doing other major things. And then he doesn't do it. So then I delegate and it just doesn't get done. And it is so frustrating. So I think a lot of times we need to see patterns of trust, right? When we're asking something to be done and you see that people are reliable and they're doing it and they're loyal and they love you and they have your back and they're worried about you and they want to take something off your plate. For me, it's not a control freak thing. It's that, when I have that level of trust, that's when I feel I can let it go.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe that's a whole different podcast about why don't you trust anybody? No, I trust some people.
No, but it's interesting that we both have different viewpoints on why delegating is hard. For you, it's a trust issue. For me, if I want it done right, I'm just going to do it myself.
Right.
Because I don't want to go back and fix it.
Right. And do we really have to fix it?
Sometimes. Sometimes it is a requirement.
I mean, sometimes we have to take a step back and not fix it, right? I mean, that's probably important too, but there's some really good stuff that I was researching coming up in all of this. So let's talk about the obvious. I mean, at least I think it's obvious to everybody, even though we don't do it. What do we gain when we let go? Right? What will delegating bring us? Well, it gives us back time because somebody else is doing it, gives us back energy, and it gives us back, for me, it gives me back trust. Letting somebody else do it over and over and over again builds a trust for me. And I really want to trust people. And I think, we are in a society, you and I talk about this all the time, where there is not a lot of follow through. And so then it's really hard to trust people because if I say, hey, just blah, 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 blah. And I did this with Chantel. I mean, I still do it with you. I think Chantel, you'll probably say, I will circle back around and go, all right, so when you do call and you'll say things to me like, oh no, I already called, it's done. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's done. I'll say to you, if you could get the gala flyer, ready. And then after you do that, maybe so then a few days later, I'll go, all right, and you're like, what do you mean when I did it?
Well, I work how I expect other people to work. So if I ask somebody to do something, I expect it to be done. So I show that, if my husband says, oh, I need, I don't know, my socks washed, I'm just going to wash them.
I am not washing them. Jeremiah, wash your own socks, buddy.
I don't know.
I'm not with your stinky feet.
He doesn't ask me for a lot of things, but if he does, I do it right away because A, I'm going to forget.
True.
And B, I would expect the same in return.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a do unto others, so when you ask me for something, I want to do it and get it done, and then it's off my plate.
Absolutely. But I think it's kind of a dying breed. I don't necessarily know. And then, delegating something that you have to turn around and circle back to 2 or 3 times, forget it. And if I forget to circle back and then it's not done, oh no, it's bad.
It is bad.
So again, we just keep talking about me and trust.
Well, you get burned one too many times and it's hard.
You do. But here's the thing. I read this guy, his name is John Maxwell. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He has a lot of leadership books. He's a Christian, but my pastor had recommended him years ago, so I started reading. There's like the 2.0, and there's all these different books. But one thing about him that early on in his books, he talks about immediately is you are delegating not because you need it done your way or you need it done perfect. You're delegating because your job as a boss, as a mom, as, a role model is to build leaders. That's our job. Our job is not just to have employees. You want your employees to be leaders. You want to be able to let your employees lead projects and do all of these things. And that's really why you delegate. You delegate so that they feel this sense of empowerment. And then we'll talk about, if things don't go well a little later on, what that means and how that all ties in. But that's why you're doing it. You're not doing it because you want a good employee. You want a good leader. You want to be backed up by leaders, not by employees. Just like with your children. When your children do something, even if it's not 100%, right? If you're like, ugh, I have to redo that. Like they are crestfallen. They are so upset. You want to say, that was really good. Maybe next time we'll just move this over here or gently, anything that you feel needs to be redone. But how you respond to what you've delegated is also like a big, big deal. And that's something, that we're going to talk about too, because we have to kind of rewire our brains, right? Delegating, it's 100% a leadership skill. And then I was kind of like, he's right. It is a leadership skill because you're setting boundaries, but you're also building trust. So when I started reading his books, I really started working on also bringing employees into the company, my company, that, I felt I'm not going to have these issues with. Asking better questions to know what kind of employees I was getting, having better communication at my house with my kids when I'm going to get them to delegate things. So, I struggle quite a bit in this area. And it all boils down to trust. I trust you, Chantelli.
I was going to say, you've definitely gotten better in that area with me. You delegate quite a bit.
I do.
As you should.
And I have to.
Yeah.
Chantel's in her own office and I'm in the kitchen all day cooking. And I'm just hoping, nobody's burning the place down. I'm like, we survived. Nobody has called me with a mean, text or an email. So we're good to go. You have to control only what you can control.
Yeah.
And you have to let go of everything else. And, sometimes I think for me, I have to identify what needs a personal touch and what really doesn't. We're writing thank you cards now, to as many donors as we can, because it really is a lost art, I feel. I feel it's not done enough. So we're trying to get some thank you cards written. And as much as I thought it had to be me, when I kind of reframed my brain and I said to one of our recipients, what if you wrote them? That was even better than it being me, right? Mm-hmm. So I had to identify, is my personal touch on this card? Of course, getting a thank you from a founder, an executive director of a charity you give to is wonderful. But what other ways can we load the dishwasher where it's still acceptable and everything's getting done? Yeah. And, that's kind of what I'm trying to do, is think a little bit outside the box. Of course, for Giselle, who has been on our podcast, talking about the loss of her daughter, of course, for her to write the card, I mean, really, that's way better than me writing the card.
It's a full circle moment.
It is. And so identifying, does it really need your personal touch? Is it okay if it's not done your way? I think that's important. Mm-hmm. And then and talking about the invitations, it was kind of I need to define what is the outcome instead of the process. Getting the invitations out, getting the thank you cards out is the most important thing. whether I write the card or Giselle writes the card.
Yep.
Like sometimes we get tripped up on this stuff that's not that important. The most important thing is the donor's getting a handwritten card, period.
Yeah, they know they're appreciated.
100%. Practicing gratitude for any help received, even if it's different than your version, right? That is a really important thing to do because that lets us know that it really is okay to have all these variations, and it lets the person know that we've given it to, that we are okay with it. We have to start expressing gratitude. And I think sometimes for me, I don't ask you guys, I still do this with all of you. I will come in on a Saturday or a Sunday and I know you yell. And I think that is because sometimes I feel guilty putting it on your plate.
What, coming in on a Saturday?
Well, I'll come in on a Saturday or Sunday because sometimes I'll look at the workload of you guys and I'll think, there's just no way that we can, do one more thing in this. I'm just going to come in on the weekend and get this done. So there's also sometimes a guilt thing that goes along with this delegation. Like so many people think it's because there's perfectionism behind it. But for me, it's as an empath, it's a million other things. I've already analyzed you. I think you're going to be exhausted. And then Jeremiah's going to get mad you didn't do his socks. And then I have gone down a rabbit hole. And then I'm like, I'll just come in on a Saturday, which of course isn't the right response either. But that's something I think that's important too. People that do not give their task away to others, it doesn't always mean it's because, perfectionism is on their list. For me, it's empathy. I'm afraid I'm giving you too much. I'm trying to balance that. Or, it's trust because I'm afraid you might drop the ball on me. So and I know that with you don't delegate a lot either.
Well, no, I get my job delegated to me.
Well, here you do, but, right, you do take on quite a bit of other stuff. You'll do a lot of stuff like in the classrooms and.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah. When it's a teacher who's pouring so much into my kids, the least I can do is help them, support them.
So do you delegate at home at all for the kids, for Jeremiah?
My kids have been getting some tasks. Like they have to clean their plates after dinner and put it in the dishwasher. I try not to fix it.
So hard.
They're putting their own laundry away now. So they clean their own bathroom. And I try to only go in and fix the bathroom once a month.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
That's very good.
Yes.
Because the bathroom, that thing get dirty quick.
Yeah. Well, I feel really fortunate. I have girls. I know that boy bathrooms can get very, very bad. So my girls, it's usually the toothpaste in the sink.
Oh my gosh. So my sweet, precious, little child, Fiona, who's not little, she's 20 now, is just germaphobe centric. Mm-hmm. So when the toothpaste comes out, there is toothpaste. Nope. No. Then she won't use that toothpaste and will open it. I'm not even kidding. And then I've said to her, let's have your own toothpaste. You can bring it back and forth. And there will be globs of toothpaste that she will have because it might have touched somebody else's toothbrush in that sink. Oh, I love my child. I love my child. I love my child. Oh,
that's a lot.
There is a lot going on. So I want to talk about, because delegating is important, but I want to talk about the reality of it, because this is why I've never really done the delegation thing, because I'm like, it is really not that simple for all the millions of reasons that, we've just talked about. But it's also not that simple because sometimes it really isn't good enough, right? Mm-hmm. You have delegated to somebody and it's really not good enough. So as I was diving into all of that, because it happens with me in the kitchen, sometimes with volunteers, and that's a whole different beast, right? The way you talk to a volunteer, the what you expect from a volunteer, they're not getting paid. So I have all these different scenarios going on, but something that I took away from delegation is, were my expectations clear, and were they clear enough? Because I, as all of you that listen to these episodes have learned, will go around and about and around a corner, and I will get back to the point. But sometimes it's not really clear. People are like, well, you said 4 things, and I don't know which one to do first. This is me. You can say it. It's okay. You. And, you know, and they'll kind of be like, And so I have learned that I should say one thing, and then when that thing is done, move on to other things.
I think in that situation, though, it's also knowing your audience.
Oh, I don't know if there's an audience that can put up with Krista Jones.
I put up with you every day.
I mean, but...
Like, I've learned that when you start talking, I start taking notes. Because 10 things that need to get done are going to happen, or they're going to come out in that instant, and neither one of us is going to remember.
Yeah.
So I learned my, not audience, but my speaker.
Yeah.
And I know when you start talking, I start writing.
Yes. And like you know, you had said earlier, hey, listen, if you ask me to do something, I do it right away. When I have your undivided attention, the 7 things that have been waiting in my brain, I just have to throw them up.
Yeah.
Because I also will then lose my train of thought. So are we being clear in our expectations, right? Before you start like rage cleaning the kitchen in the back. And I've learned that sometimes I even have to write it on a board because I still apparently haven't been, what's the word I want to use? Clear enough. And did the people have what they needed to have to succeed? That's another thing with John Maxwell. If you want to delegate, you also have to set people up for success, not for failure. They have to have whatever tools it is in order to make this successful. Are you going to be, are you delegating and leaving this to somebody that's never done anything like this before? Are you around for them to come in and out and ask questions like, hey, this is what I'd like you to do today. And if you get tripped up, I'm just right in the office. Come and see me, ask me any questions you want. So that is another thing too. Like, are you setting somebody up for success? And that could take a little bit of time before you delegate. And I think one of the hardest things for me is giving grace when maybe somebody hasn't done it the way I want them to do it, but not glossing over it either. Because sometimes, it's hard for me to be kind and to be direct. Because I feel directness is abrupt and not kind. So like I have to rewire my brain and realize that I can be kind, but I have to identify what's going on for the other person, or how in the world are they ever going to fix it, right?
Absolutely.
So that for me is also a big issue.
Well, it's tough because you don't want to hurt the other person's feelings.
True.
They genuinely were trying to help you. They were trying to do the thing that you asked them to do. So you don't want to crush their spirit or make them feel like you're not grateful, but you also don't want to have to fix it every time that person does that thing.
100%. Because even like with your kids, right? If they don't do it right, you sigh, you're silent, and you start redoing it all. Then they haven't learned anything. Because, you want to create skills in your children. You want to create skills in your employees. And if it is wrong, communication is a really, really big part of that. And immediately, not waiting too long. I had a situation, a while ago where I was like spit fire mad. So I was like, this week's not going to be the week to address it. Oh gosh. Anyways, but I had to address it, not long after that, because I didn't really want to forget some of the things that I had to say, because you're not looking for perfect, but you absolutely are looking for the job to be done well, even if it isn't your own vision, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And then not glossing it over and retraining people and tweaking people, right? So maybe when you delegated it, it did not turn out exactly right. So you also, I think, have to have some patience. You have to let them do this a few times, give them the tweaks as they're doing it. And honestly, people will get to a place where you need them to be, but it needs to be rewiring your brain that it's good enough.
Yep.
I think that's really important. And that's something that I struggle with. And then something else is, why am I so triggered? Right? Like
Why,
now,
Krista Jones?
well, Chantal Schaefer.
Are we going back to childhood?
We should. My poor mom and dad, thank goodness they don't listen to this podcast, but my brothers probably do. Sometimes the stress isn't about the fact that the job is done wrong. Sometimes it's about how it's going to reflect on you.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
If you're doing a job for me and you haven't done it status quo, that's a reflection back to me.
Mm-hmm.
If you have taught your children to say thank you 5,043 times and you go to a birthday party and they shove 6 cupcakes in, burp in the face of the host and leave, this is me, going down my spiral. That reflects on you as their mom.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes we're triggered. So is it really about the task? Is it about letting go of the task? Is it about how it's going to make us feel? Sometimes it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, I never looked at it that way, but when I ask my children or my husband to clean something and then there's people coming over, I'm going, oh my gosh, there's a water stain on that table and they're going to think I'm a slob. And yeah.
It's true though.
And they probably will not notice the water stain.
No. They're probably not going to notice those things,
Yeah.
but you're feeling, oh my gosh, this is a reflection on me.
And how I am as a housekeeper and a mom and
Absolutely.
a wife.
It's a spiral.
That is
because nobody's looking at that water stain and seeing what you're seeing in that moment, because we perpetuated something, as we talked about a couple episodes ago, that really isn't even true.
Yeah.
We're just so triggered. We're so emotional that we can't even get outside of our emotions to realize that's not even how this is going to go down. So that's important. And not redoing it in silence, right? Because you're training people that you're just going to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm going to just really be honest with you, because my mom and dad aren't listening, and you did tell me to go back to childhood. We lived in Florida, for goodness sake. Chantal, it's like 173 degrees in the winter, and we had a push mower. We grew up with not a lot, and we didn't have a push mower for some time, but we had a push mower, and we all had to go out there as kids and do it. And I was a very cute, adorable, chubby, wubby little child. I was a chubby, wubby little child. I'm going to digress here. Right before we left from Connecticut to move to Florida, and you don't know this story, but now you will. My mother's best friend cut my hair. I mean, like to my ears.
Oh, no.
So I absolutely could have passed as a boy, because I was probably 8. Gets worse. Then we go to 173 degree Florida, where my mom let me not run around with a shirt on.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So 8-year-old Krista Markovich at the time,
Topless in Florida.
Topless with my brothers. We used to get on these little 3-wheeler bikes. We would pedal them down the road. We were meeting all the neighbors and back. So then I have totally digressed, everybody, but I'm just going to go ahead with the story. So then first day of school, when Krista Markovich wears a dress,
Shocked.
everybody,
The whole hood.
I mean, it's kind of like I was transitioning, and it was 40 years before everybody else has, because everybody's like, you're not a girl.
Oh my gosh.
And then I think my mom was like, oh no. I mean, I think I was bullied for like a year. I'm like, I'm absolutely a girl. What are you talking about? And then my mom was like, wow, bad mom moment on my mom's part.
Where does the perfection delegation come in here?
I have totally lost my train of thought. Where was I going with Florida? Oh, I don't know.
Push mower.
Thank you.
Wow. Were you mowing the yard?
Yes, purposely, badly.
Oh, so that you wouldn't be asked to do it again?
Exactly.
That's incredible.
And that's what happened, because my mom would get mad, and if it wasn't done right, she would do it. So I would not mow straight, and she would be like, can't you see the lines? And I was like, no, I'm so sorry. I was probably 10 then, and I'm hoping I had on a shirt. Just for the rocks that were coming my way as I ran them over, and the snakes. And I don't even know. So that is how I got out of doing anything, because my mom was the silent type. She'd just get mad, and I knew she'd do it. And let me tell you, my 10-year-old
Sneaky.
wearing a shirt self picked up on that. And I was like, I'm just going to
See, but I wonder if that's part of your mentality too, is that people are going to intentionally do it wrong so they won't do it in the future.
Oh, that's deep.
Like maybe that's
I
back
screwed
there.
myself up.
You might have.
By being a dishonest child.
See, my childhood was different. Like I learned I had to do it myself or it wasn't getting done. There was just so much going on in my household that like laundry by like 10 or 11, I had 3 sisters and it was like, my socks are in her room. My this is in that room. And I was like, I want my clothes. And my mom was like, you want it done, do it yourself.
This might explain the perfectionism.
And so at a very young age, it was, if you want it done right, do it yourself.
You were traumatized because you couldn't find your socks. And now you're washing Jeremiah's.
Now, well,
full circle.
Listen, he
though?
washes most of the laundry. I delegated that to him when I was pregnant because our washer and dryer is in our basement. And
Made sense.
It didn't make me feel safe carrying laundry down. And then I never really took it back. I fold it.
Perfect sense. So don't redo anything in silence. You can redo it, but as you're redoing it, talk about why you're redoing it and what you'd like to see different next time, right? Doesn't have to be 100%. Kindly, and don't explode. That's where this is, in frustration, because that is going to kill somebody's motivation, your children's, your employees, your friends, and their trust too. They're not going to ever want to say yes to you again about doing something because they're afraid. We had some really, really bad weather. It's really, really hot here in the Hudson Valley right now, 90, 95 degrees. I mean, that's hot for us. You're in Florida, probably going, it's winter. But
I thought it was 173 in the winter.
That's true. It is. So this would be like the Arctic. I don't know what this would be, but we ended up getting mold in our commercial fridge. And I had appointments and I was just like so overwhelmed. And the ladies here were like, go. And it killed me to leave you guys behind to like finish cleaning all of that. I was like dying because yes, you're supposed to delegate, but when your feelings get involved and you're really spiraling, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're touching the mold. But you know what? By me saying yes and letting you guys do that, like I think I wrote you later that day, I made a point of it of saying, you guys have no idea like what that just took off my plate, like how amazing that was, how wonderful that was. And that's the thing. There is such a peace when you can trust and you can let it off your plate and it is done. And it's not something you're coming in on a Saturday to finish.
Well, yeah, nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that. Explain it, adjust it. And if worse comes to worse, then you reassign it. If the person you've given a task to just isn't built for it, then assign it to somebody else. Because you're building a team, whether it's at home, whether it's here, in the workforce. You're not a one-woman show. It's not a dictatorship. And that's exactly what people are going to think it is if you don't let everybody in on it. Delegation doesn't have to be a bad word.
You got to be like Elsa and let it go.
Wow. And with that, could you sing?
Let it go, let it go.
That was pretty good, actually.
Thank you.
Delegation does not always have to be smooth. Sometimes people are going to drop the ball. You might even overcorrect, and sometimes it feels easier to just do it yourself, but it shouldn't mean that you do everything alone. Delegation is actually, it's a skill. You're building leadership. It's a process. It is like a long-term strategy to self-care, to keeping yourself healthy. It's team building. It's all of these great things wrapped into one. You are allowed, Elsa, to let it go imperfectly. You're allowed to be supported, even when it's messy. And you're allowed to rest and not redo it. So this week, here's your homework. Pass something off. I don't care what it is. Don't check on it when you pass it off either. Let the weird candy stay in the goodie bags unless it's peanut butter. Those are allergies. Don't mess with that. Instead of perfect, choose peace. We love you guys. You can check out our website at sparrowsnestcharity.org. And until next time, take care of yourself and each other.